What's happening, everyone, and welcome back to the Pathways to Success podcast, and specifically a special Valentine's Day episode. Today on the show, I have Deya Direct. She is an Amazon #1 best-selling author, nationally syndicated producer, media personality, podcaster, superpower strategist, certified life coach, and of course, relationship expert. Deya, welcome to the Pathways to Success podcast. How are you?
Ooh, Julian, I'm all impressed.
I have never heard your voice on this before, man. You sound amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Almost as if you've had some experience.
No,
in the
not
business,
me. I mean,
right?
I'm listening to you, and I'm really feeling a way about that.
Well, Deya, before we jump into the topic here, and first off, thank you for doing this, because of all the things I talk about on the show,
Yeah.
business and entrepreneurship, I never really talk about personal relationships. So
Yeah.
this is specifically romantic relationships. So this is kind of out of my comfort zone. So this should be an interesting conversation. But give us a little bit about your background so our listeners know where your insights are coming from.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I've always been really passionate about relationships, and I'm really good at getting into them.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is that I'm actually in my third marriage. And I got married really young, straight out of college. And what I realized is when I was getting into relationships, I was doing it from a place of fear. And looking for security. I was a theater major in college, a very risky career. And as brave and bold as I was, I recognized that I was always kind of looking for security. And in hindsight, what I now understand as a life coach is that I was really looking for my daddy and didn't know it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we often are responding to our childhood self, and we're always running away from certain things that, we're trying to overcome, perhaps that our parents did. And so in my case, I was trying to be better than, how my mom's relationship was. And most parents, they want better for their kids.
Yeah.
My mom had been married 3 times. I always said, I'm never going to do that. And so that's the interesting thing. I spent so much of my energy on the defense as opposed to on the offense in terms of really focusing on what I really want and what I was really attracting. So I ended up attracting the very thing that I said I didn't want.
Wow. So what was the thing that you had to do now, having those insights to sort of...
Well, through therapy.
There you go. Yeah.
And really tapping into my own emotional intelligence, I realized that I was repeating patterns.
Yeah.
And I had to make new decisions. And I also realized that it wasn't anybody else's responsibility to make me happy. Nobody is actually capable of making you happy. They can enhance your life, but you have to show up with your core already being together, right? Because everybody is trying to figure out their own life. And so in my first book, it was actually really cathartic for me. It's called Touch Yourself, 30 Ways to Boldly Live, Love, and Let Go. And so even though that's a little, risque in terms of title, I do believe in that also.
Yeah.
But even though it's a little risque in terms of title, the concept was that you should be so in touch with who you are.
Yeah.
And what you bring to the table, that you really should be teaching other people about you and not the other way around. In other words, I shouldn't be looking to you for validation about me, because I should know more about me than you ever could. In fact, you're trying to discover me, right? Whether that's personally, professionally, even sexually. And so a lot of times, even as women, we're always looking for the man to discover things. And no, you live with yourself all of your life.
Yeah.
You should really be teaching people about you and not the other way around. And so I try to apply that in every area of my life. And that's not to say I'm not constantly learning about myself, right? Or growing, or that you can't even point out some things that maybe I didn't realize because I'm too close to it. We often don't see our flaws because we're so close to us, and we want to believe certain things are better than what they really are. But I'm just saying in terms of the core, my core beliefs, my core needs, I'm not looking for somebody else to put me together. You can enhance, but you cannot make me. And so as I've journeyed on in that, I've made new and better decisions along the way. But I've always just, loved love, and the heart is resilient.
Yeah.
And even though what I find a lot with my clients, and I think a lot of people who maybe either are divorced or who haven't gotten married yet but want to, because it's not for everybody, is a lot of times when you get hurt or when things don't work, you feel like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put myself in that situation again. It costs too much. I don't want to be vulnerable in that way again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I was able to do was to make my failure my fuel, was to make my pain pay me back. And so I believe, we all like money for the most part. Money helps the world go round. And when you put your money in the bank or whatever you do, you want your money to gain interest, right?
Right.
You talk business, you can appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
And so you want your money to make money for you. And so it's the same concept. If you went through it, if it cost you something, if you spent time, energy, emotion, pain, joy, happiness, all those things, time, which is very costly, you don't throw it away and say, I'm never going to do that again. The whole point of everything that we go through, Julian, isn't it, is to learn.
Yeah.
And when you learn, then you can leverage. And you should leverage what you learn. And so every step along the way, you learn something about yourself. You learn something about what you do want, what you don't want, what you will do differently. You see red flags differently, all of these things, and then you leverage it. And so it really, every experience, I'm not proud that I've been married 3 times, but what I have been able to do is to take that information that I've learned and to apply it not only to my own life, but also to the lives of the people that I influence.
Yeah, I love it. And honestly, I think that's why you have an interesting perspective, because you have so much experience in relationships, in the successes and also like the failures you mentioned that you've learned from. So let's kind of jump into that then. So this episode is not for the people who have figured out love and know everything, right?
And their relationship is all perfect.
Yeah, that's not what this is about. This is for the inept people like myself, right? So as far as this goes, I want to cater to people who might be struggling in relationships or might not be in a relationship and want to enter into one. So let's start with the baseline. Let's start with kind of reason and purpose, right? Is there such thing as a good or bad reason to want to enter into a romantic relationship?
I think the worst reason would be to be happy.
That's the worst reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? To find happiness in someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Would be to be happy. Because think about it. That's way too much responsibility to put on another human being who is also trying to figure out their life.
Yeah, that doesn't
in
sound
real
like
time.
a good recipe. Yeah.
And
right.
and if you're trying to also fulfill your own purpose, happiness, joy, figure out your next right move in life, can you really also do that for another human being? It's just not possible.
Yeah.
And so false expectations, I think, is one of the crippling things that I think we have in relationships. I think one of the best reasons to want to be in a relationship is to add value to where you're going in your life with a partner. And you see that it's a partnership, because it is. And even though you say this is out of your comfort zone, marriage and relationships overall, it's business. It's the business of love. It's the business of relationships. It's the business of marriage. And when you get to the point of marriage, it's definitely that, because you're putting your resources together, your everything. And so there's a lot of vulnerability there. People are looking at your paperwork. You should know if somebody has good credit or not. And you should, all these things. You want to, you're going to know your debt to income ratio. You're going to want to buy a house together. All these things do matter. It is business. So you're really not as far off as you think you are.
So first off, that's really interesting. So the biggest red flag that you mentioned is don't try to find happiness in another person.
No.
You almost have to be in a state of being whole. But you said the good one is you want to add value to the other person?
No, you want to add value to the sum total.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So partnership.
Yeah.
So in other words, I can be in business by myself and I can do a good job.
Uh-huh.
But when I find somebody who's compatible, who has the same interests,
Yeah.
we may want to go into business together because we can do more together.
Yeah.
Like from a spiritual perspective, one can put 10,000, 1,000 to flight, and two can put 10,000 to flight. In other words, you can get more with more, And so you want to procreate. You generally can't do that by yourself. You know what I mean? And so that's what I mean by value, not necessarily happiness,
Yeah.
but in terms of what you feel like your overall purpose
Yeah.
may be. And I think even though I've been in relationships, I'm also an only child.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also I've been very independent all my life. I've never really depended on anyone since I graduated from college financially. And so, there's that part of me that I just want to do it all myself. And so, in recognizing that, it's not that you can't do it by yourself. It's just that when you decide that, you know what, I've done all these great things, and I realize that is not necessarily how I want to live the rest of my life. So I had the big home, more than I could live in. Money, more than I could spend. And now what? So if you're in the big house by yourself and you realize on a Friday night, I want to be spending this with somebody.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this by myself. And so
Right.
I'm not saying that being single is not valuable, because it is. And I enjoy my single life. It's just that I made a decision, and I think we all get to a point in life where you realize, I want a partner.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So, as you know, I'm divorced.
I do know
I'm
that.
a single person now.
How's that going?
Pretty. I honestly have not been on a single date or anything. I've just been so busy with business and everything. But I guess when it comes to timing, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know if you're in a healthy state as a single person that you could enter into another relationship, I guess?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You won't know if you're not dating.
That's true, right?
You got to get in the game.
Yeah.
And I think, well, you do have to detox. Let me say something. So I have someone that I work with from time to time, and who also comes on my show, and he's a neuroscientist. And we talked about detoxing from past relationships. And so there is a point where you have to detox. You do have to detach. You have to get rid of those old pictures. You have to stop going down memory lane. You have to stop saying all those what ifs. And you know that you've healed. Generally, if there was anger, and when you see that person, you're no longer sad or angry. Yeah. You're probably in your healing phase. But like any relationship, if when it ends, it's like mourning. There are like 5 phases of mourning. So you're going to be, mad, happy, sad, all those things. You're going to go through those emotions. So I think you do, in terms of the healing process, have to allow yourself to grieve the relationship, or really be happy that the relationship is over. And then take stock of yourself and really think about, what are some things that I want to do better? What are some things that I learned about myself in this relationship? And what do I want to do about what I learned? Right? Yeah. And being proactive before somebody else comes into that space. But the true thing is, it's like taking a test, Julian. Yeah. You only know if you've grown until you take the test and then pass it. Right. As long as you're not involved at all, it's easy to say, oh, I don't do that anymore. I'm not that person. I've grown since then. How do you know? How do you know, Julian? How do you really know if you've grown? You got to test it out. You got to test out the waters.
I'm in the stands. I'm not in the game right now. So, yeah, no, I hear you.
No, when I say Julian, I'm just saying in general. And so there is a point where you have to just get in the game. Yeah. And it's just like anything else, starting a new business or whatever. Are you ever really ready? Yeah. There's always going to be something you don't know. And so if you enter in and you discover, you know what, I'm not sure I'm ready, you take a step back. Yeah. But but you don't overanalyze it. You meet somebody, you have a good conversation, you engage. You go online, you strike up a conversation because you're bored on a Friday or a Saturday, you engage. You know what I mean? Everything doesn't have to lead to marriage. I think the most important thing is like to meet people, be good people, have fun, and don't put too much on it. Yeah. Yeah, you're speaking to my soul right now, because I'm classically the over analytical type, right? No, not you.
So yeah, there's that. Well, let's talk about that then. Let's say that you are in a healthy state now, and honestly, I don't feel like there's anything missing from my life, and I have grieved the end of the relationship. Yeah. I really feel like I'm in this amazing place right now. But for someone like myself, where do people? How do you find people to date? Here's the thing, man. I'm so scared of these apps, man. And it doesn't feel natural to me. It feels inorganic. So, I mean, today, like, how do you meet good people?
I met my husband online.
Did you really? Yep. Okay, there we go. Just talking trash about it.
Yeah. I met my husband online. It's okay.
Okay, yeah.
No, and by the way, I was irritated. that I did meet my husband online. Like, I was irritated by the idea of having to even be online.
Yeah.
But my life was very busy.
Yeah.
And it was most convenient. And I was, a social girl, so it's not like I wasn't going out and meeting people.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, you can't narrow it down in the same way. Well, if you're analytical, to me, it seems like online actually would work, because you can put in all the specifics, and it's still not gonna be a perfect fit, but at least you can kind of see off the top if there are some commonalities.
Yeah.
Right. So I did both. I dated online. I went out, and see, I think you have to just go out.
Yeah.
And sometimes go out by yourself.
Okay.
I tell women to do that all the time. Like,
Yeah.
stop going out with your girlfriends all the time, or if you do, still away. If you're out, let's say at a bar or lounge or whatever it is, even church, go take a bathroom break. What I mean? Or go to some of the events. But don't always be engaged in your comfort circle.
Yeah.
The people that you showed up with. Otherwise, that message that you're sending is, I'm already engaged, I'm already busy, I'm not interested in meeting anyone. And so you have to literally position yourself to meet people. People are and you're a very engaging person. And yeah, you can meet people doing business too.
Yeah.
But just engage and be open to the process.
So there's nothing wrong with the apps then?
No. Well, there are different apps for different things.
Okay.
Right?
What would work best for me, you think?
Well, I don't know what will work best for you yet.
Yeah.
I would have to do some analysis.
Okay.
But if you're, because I know if you're just doing the one where you're swiping and the person is nearby,
Yeah.
Some people do that just for hookups. So it just depends on your motives.
Yeah.
I think I would probably invest more in something that I paid for a little bit, because people are serious.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets rid of maybe some of the riffraff.
That makes sense, yeah.
People who value it differently, and you get very specific. There can be apps based on the race that you're interested in, based on the age, based on religion and beliefs. And so I think you can, from a marketing perspective, you can target your audience, and so that at least helps.
Yeah. Okay, that's you actually did appeal to the analytical side of me, which is you really are good at what you do.
But it's actually just true. I wasn't. Yeah, it's actually just true.
That makes sense. Okay, so so that's the dating piece.
Yeah.
You said that you did both the apps and just kind of meeting people
Yeah.
organically. What do you think is a mistake people make when they begin to date?
The list.
What's the list? Oh, this is what I want in a person?
Yes, all of those things.
Dude, I wrote that down, so that's a bad thing.
No, I think it's important to know what you want,
Yeah.
but then be open.
Okay.
Because,
yeah.
God laughs at stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, but are you closing yourself off to, okay, so if that person, okay, here's the thing. Priorities versus preferences.
Okay, explain that.
So I just started this course called The Superpower to Love Again. And so I have these different modules. Mm-hmm. In the module called Priorities versus Preferences, it's where, if you're going to do a list, figure out your priorities versus your preferences. I prefer someone who's 5 feet and who has long, brunette hair and who went to MIT.
Yeah.
Preferences. Or not. Versus priorities are usually your deal breakers. Like, this person must be financially responsible. Mm-hmm. We must have the same beliefs. She must want to have children if I want to have children. Like, things that are going to be deal breakers, your bottom line, your core issues, things that are going to really shape your life. Does this person make good decisions? Are they family oriented? Things that are your foundational issues. Those are your priorities. Your preferences may shift because we change. So maybe she's not, 5 foot even, but maybe she's 5'2". Mm-hmm. Is that a deal breaker?
No. Yeah. I mean.
So
yeah.
That's how you put it in the category.
Got it.
So you know what I mean? Like, maybe she's, you know what? She may not be a natural brunette, but she likes to dye her hair. One day she's blue, the next day she's blonde. But you know what? This girl really makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And I like how I feel when I'm around her. And I think that's what we all really want. You want somebody who makes you feel good, who gets you, who you can be vulnerable around, who you don't have to overcompensate in any way, pretending that you have more than you have, that you are more than you are, and who you are is enough. That's what you want. And most importantly, friendship. Mm-hmm. Crucial. Because even on the days that you don't like your spouse, you're gonna that you don't want to be around them and you love them, you may not like them. But if you can find a way to laugh together, and and you like to do certain things together, and you just, you know what, I like you, even if I don't feel like I'm in love with you today, because you're not going to be in love every day.
Yeah.
And so these fairy tale ideas of every day is going to be Sunday and we're just going to always be romantic and we're just going to, it's going to be like the movies and we're going to have, we're going to make love for 2 hours. No, not happening No. Busy. Life is busy. We're not doing that for 2 hours. Not, for 10 years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, if that doesn't happen, my marriage is over. No, not really.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this, those priorities that you were talking about. If there's one thing that I learned from the end of my relationship, it was clarity about my values. Whenever you go through something traumatic like that, you start becoming very introspective. Let me ask you this. Has there ever been a case when the priorities were not in alignment, but the relationship did succeed?
For me?
In any case in history, I guess.
Yeah, I would probably.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we have more priorities, more than one priority, and more than one preference.
Yeah.
If a person's, for instance, there are a lot of relationships. When I talk about the business of marriage, some people really do want love, and they want that compatibility in that way, but they stay together for business reasons.
Interesting.
I know people who they're still roommates, even though they're not together, because financially it makes sense, or they still want their kids to have both parents in the house. Mm-hmm. So they don't prefer to be together, but their priority is what they want to do for their family.
Interesting.
So
but
lots of contradictions.
But that's actually a shared priority, though.
It's a shared priority,
yeah.
But their other priorities may be different.
Yeah.
We have more than one. It's not like you can only have one priority. Mm-hmm. It's just about which one is going to rule. Mm-hmm. And circumstances often impact that also. Some people are still in the same house together because it's just financially more feasible.
Yeah. I've seen
That's just
examples
what that
of
is. Yeah.
Man. Well, let's jump into some of these passion topics. You already touched lightly on this one, but I think it's really important, and I think a lot of people sort of maybe are not completely authentic with themselves about this, but no one is responsible for your happiness.
Yeah, and I think you use the word authentic. Mm-hmm. We have to be honest with ourselves about who we are, how we feel, what we really want.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are making decisions based upon expectations of others, including our family. And so you make these decisions of, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go to this college, and all these things that are supposed to make you happy, only to find out that it doesn't. And so I think in this process of no one making you happy, you also, in the process of learning yourself, which is always, you also have to give yourself permission to change your mind.
Give yourself permission to change your mind.
Because what used to matter doesn't matter anymore. And when you discover that, be honest about that too.
Yeah. And
sometimes as we change, the people in our lives, they can't keep up with our changes.
Yeah.
They don't even know, because we're in the process and it's internal. And so it's not possible for anything external really to make you happy. It can be a distraction. It can be a form of happiness, but it's not going to be infinite and internal and eternal happiness, because circumstances change all the time. Mm-hmm. And so as circumstances change like the wind, is your happiness going to also change like the wind? So other people can't be responsible for that. You have to figure that out along the way. And even along the way, when it does change, because it will, what was most important, what made you happy in college is not going to be what makes you the most happy now. Nobody else can work that out for you. And it's not fair to expect them to.
So it almost seems like there's a professional, personal development aspect to that. So how does one become fully congruent with themselves so that they're not seeking happiness externally?
Constantly doing inventory. For me, it's also my faith.
Yeah.
And understanding that I need help constantly and not expecting to always have it together. I think that gives us a sense of peace when you recognize and you're okay with your humanity, not from the aspect of not growing, but from the aspect of I'm always going to be growing, and I'm really glad that I have God to really guide and direct me, because sometimes if I'm caught up in my emotions, I might not see clearly, so I need help and direction. And so I want to be clear too, I'm not saying that other people can't help you, because we need that. We need that human connection. We need somebody who can maybe see something that we can't, but it shouldn't be the foundation. And you should be open enough to growth and change that when somebody maybe points something out and it gels with your spirit and you could see how it might be right, you can receive it.
Yeah.
It's just that we have to constantly be on that journey more for ourselves, because sometimes what happens too is when we don't deal with our stuff, we're always trying to tell other people what to do.
Yeah.
But really, it's like we're projecting because we don't want to deal with our own stuff.
That's good. So we talked about failure in relationships.
Yeah.
And I certainly, I don't think anyone wants to go through a divorce. But you really do learn lessons about relationships because of it. So failure is fuel in life and love.
Yeah.
So tell us more about that.
For me, that was my second book. It's really a mini book. It's an ebook, really.
Yeah.
And I printed it out, and it actually ended up doing really, really well on Amazon.
Yeah.
Failure is fuel for me was what I talked about earlier. There was a period, Julian, where I was really ashamed of what I thought was a failure. You have to remember, I went from being Miss Black USA to being a divorcee in like a year. So here I am representing the world, on a national and international level for Black women, and then going from college to immediately getting married to not pursuing my dream, which was to, at that time, go to Hollywood and be an actress. I was a theater major. To settling because my ex-husband wasn't of the mindset to go full force to Hollywood yet. He had a different understanding of how the process worked. And because I was afraid to take a risk on myself, I chose what I thought was a safe bet. Well, I ended up going down the aisle with tears in my eyes.
Wow.
And they were not tears of joy. But I didn't have the courage to disappoint people.
Oh my gosh, that must have been...
Yeah. And everyone had bought their tickets. By the time I felt like I was like, okay, you know what? I don't think this is the right move for me. I didn't want to disappoint anyone else. I didn't want my relationship to end, but I knew there was more. So around a year later and a half, when everything kind of crashed, I actually took pills. Not because I really wanted to die. And, this can be a controversial statement, but I'm just saying for me, it was a desperate attempt to get his attention, to say, I need you to see that I'm in pain here. In hindsight, what I understand is I was mad at him because he was still going full force in his career. He was going full force in his business. I did all the compromising. I went and got my safe government job. I stayed in Washington, D.C. And so what I realized is it wasn't him that I was mad at. I was mad at myself because I didn't have the courage to go after my dreams full force. And so I wanted him to make me happy.
Wow.
Because I invested so much in this relationship and I sacrificed so much to be in this relationship. But that was a choice because I didn't have the courage. And so what happened is now you have this cycle of self-disappointments. From going down the aisle to being afraid to now, making a dramatic move where I took pills. Excuse me, I have a little cold. So here's what happened. I went through this dramatic act to get his attention. And his mother told him, if she tried to take her own life, which I really didn't, because I put most of the pills back. I thought about my mother. I'm an only child, and I thought about my soul, and I didn't, but at that point, it went too far. It still went too far. But she told him, if she tried to kill herself, she might try to kill you next.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he left me the next day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Talk about dramatic and talk about, okay, what do you do with yourself and all your feelings now? So here I am. I made choices and sacrifices that didn't pay off. In fact, they smacked me in the face. Mm-hmm. They backfired. And literally, my love betrayed me. Literally. Mm-hmm. So now what do? He's gone. All I can do is deal with myself. Now, I would have been better off dealing with my choice of not going through with the marriage and dealing with some pain, but less pain. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is, once that all occurred, I was ashamed. I was so ashamed. And so through therapy, through working out my own stuff, I realized I could either allow the situation to make me, or I could learn from it and I could leverage it. And what I found out is that when you're honest and authentic, as you said, you help other people live again, because you discover that it's not just you. And the stories may not be the same, but everybody's got a story. And if I don't have anything else, I've got my story. And that's what makes me special. And that's how you make your failure your fuel. You use it. You use it as energy, because energy has no beginning or end, but it does transfer. But you get to decide if it's positive or negative. How you like that?
Oh, man, drop the mic on that one. Okay, so Deya, let me ask you this then. If you were to summarize all the quote-unquote failures you've had in terms of relationships, if there was one lesson that you know for sure as a result of all those failures that you want to tell the entire world, what is that one thing?
That you should make your story count. Whatever you've gone through, it happened to you, and it can happen for you. And by being honest and real and okay, in other words, once you get okay with your story, everybody else will too. Because they're responding to your energy about your truth.
Yeah.
And when you own your truth as just that, and you don't necessarily take a perspective that, oh, woe was me, I can't believe this happened to me. Well, if you believe that it's terrible, it's terrible. But when you get to the point when you recognize there's some value in what I learned, mm-hmm. and I'm going to use it, and when you get okay with it, other people will respond accordingly, because we teach people how to treat us. We teach people how to understand us. And we also can give people permission to be okay with themselves when you invite them into your environment and you're good. Mm-hmm. And you're not judgmental, and you're free. And freedom begets freedom. If you're in bondage, you're going to attract people who are also in bondage. Yeah. Once you're good with you and your story, then you're free. That doesn't even mean all your circumstances have changed. Mm-hmm. It just means that you're free, that you're connected with yourself. You recognize that you're more than what you've been through. You're more than your pain. There's all these contradictions about our lives, right? Where you're really successful here and not so much here, mm-hmm. right? But it's like going to the gym, right? Whatever muscle you work on is the one that's going to be the strongest. And so if you're not as strong in one area emotionally, mm-hmm. then that's the thing that you need to put more energy into, but it doesn't make you a failure. It just means that you're a human being who needs to get in the gym of life and work on you. And as you're in it, though, enjoy the process. Embrace the process. And when you are good with that, everybody else will respond accordingly.
I love it. You have the power to love again.
Yes.
So when a relationship ends and, you know, people go through all sorts of like crazy emotions and all that, how do you start to rebound from that?
So the thing about the heart is it's resilient.
Yeah.
Like literally, you can feel like, I don't want to have to deal with that. I don't want to deal with relationships. That's fine. You don't even have to be in a romantic relationship, but the heart wants what it wants. Mm-hmm. And we can only deny it but so much. And when you stop trying to control everything in every circumstance, and you allow yourself to fall in love with yourself again, or for the first time, you can attract love because you're good and you like you. So that means you're also inviting other people to like you because they're responding to your energy. And so I would say, if you're afraid to get in a relationship again, anybody, focus on what you do want, not on what you don't want.
Focus on what you do
If you do want to be in a happy and healthy relationship, then stop focusing on, but what if, right? Because there's always that. It's just like when you're applying for a job. Well, you're going to be preparing for that job, right? You're going to get your resume together. You're going to up your skills. You're going to work on some things that you're not good at. But you're going to put your best foot forward. Well, what if I don't get the job? What if you don't? But what if you do? But if you're always focusing on, I'm not qualified enough, I'm not going to get this job for these reasons, you're probably not going to get the job. But if you focus on, I really want this job, or I really want a job like this for these reasons, and my reasons for wanting this job in this new position is way more important, and it outweighs for all the reasons that I may not get it, then if you put your energy and your focus on that, then that's what you're going to get, or as close to it. And so I think that applies in any area. It's all transferable.
I believe that. That makes a lot of sense. Well, Deya, I want to close with two more things. And obviously, you're a relationship expert. You know, I have so many problems, right? So
no, you're actually a relationship expert, Julian. You're in the business of relationships all the time.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though. You know, I've always really been good at professional relationships and business and entrepreneurship and developing my craft of speaking and podcasting and all these things, right? But it's this one part of my life, I guess, I've not really succeeded in it. So
because you can't control it.
Yeah, and that drives me nuts, right? So here's one topic I do want to sort of unpack that we talked about during lunch. There do seem to be some general differences between a woman and a man. I will be specific about this because the first time I heard this, I was like, yeah, sure, that's just kind of a stereotype, but it seems to be real. Okay. Like when women have an issue, one of the ways that they deal with it is by voicing it out and talking about it, and men want to sort of fix it. Oh gosh, right? Yeah. So I mean, that really is me. That was me, kind of in a way showing how, you know, my affection and my love is by fixing things.
And you meant well, yeah.
I meant well when the other person just wanted to be heard. Yeah. And I never picked up on that.
Yeah. So emotional intelligence is your ability to understand yourself and others in real time.
In real time.
In real
That's
time.
The trick right there, right? Yeah.
So
yeah. A
lot of times we project on how we would want somebody to help us in a situation, right? Male and female. But the key with emotional intelligence is, what do I understand about my partner or my boss or whoever, as opposed to what I want, how I want to do it, how I want to fix it, how I want to change a circumstance, right? I want you to feel better. But the real question is, what makes you feel better? And you focus on what makes that person feel better, or how they receive help, what their love language is, and what you understand about that person. And if you understand that this person has the capability to resolve their own issue, they're just frustrated right now. That's what I understand in real time. Yeah. Or that's what she's told me, right? And so yes, that's why women, we love being with our girlfriends, because we don't have to over explain it. We get it.
Yeah.
Because we're innately made the same in that way, you know? And think about it. Everybody has masculine and feminine energy. So feminine energy is more of your soft skills, that relational experience, whereas masculine energy is more your hard skills and trying to fix things, and 1 + 1 = 2. You know, it's like, it's very basic and you can control it. Your soft skills are the things that, in your feminine energy, are things that are a little bit more malleable, you know, but it's more of a feel, it's more of a connection, but they all matter. And so when you're dealing with someone who's in touch with their feminine energy, a woman, you know, sometimes she just wants to be felt and experienced and understood. And intellectually, she has the capability to resolve her own issues. It's just that she wants that connection, that partnership. She doesn't want to have to do it alone. She wants to be understood. And so, as an example, if something went wrong at work and she's frustrated, she wants to first be understood before she's being told what to do better. But do you get it?
Yeah.
Do you get me? Do you see me? Do you understand my challenge? You know, and can you just be there for me, as opposed to trying to fix me and make me better? Because you really can't make another person better. You can provide solutions, but they also have to be in a space where they can receive it. So your emotional intelligence tells you, what do I understand to be true about this person right now? What do I know about them? Oftentimes, we try to make people be who we want them to be in a situation, not who they really are. And that's where we get lost, because we're responding to how we want them to be and how we would want something to be fixed or addressed or resolved. But that's you. That's not your partner.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And men and women are different. We are. But we all have feminine and masculine energy. And the degrees just depends on a person's personality, which can also change along the way, which is why a lot of times, you know, once a woman has a baby or once men get older, you know, that changes. Men, as they get older, they have less testosterone. And so they're more in tap with their feminine energy. And so all of a sudden, you know, older men are more feely touchy, you know, or they may be more emotional because things happen hormonally. So it's, you know, it's that play all the time.
The love languages thing, that's a real thing?
Oh, yeah.
Can you recap real quickly just for our listeners what those are?
Sure. So love language is basically how a person receives love, right? Yeah. And what are the things that make you feel loved? Yeah. Like in your case, you said, resolving, issues and being helpful. That might be your love language. My husband's love language is touch. Mm-hmm. Right? He likes to communicate and touch. My love language may be gifts. Where it's whatever a person does, or the things that a person does that make you feel you must really love me. So if your love language, as an example, is, communication, but her love language is touch, and you're giving her love the way that you know how. Yeah. But you're not responding to what you understand to be true about her, which is the emotional intelligence. How does she receive love? What makes her feel loved? Giving her flowers makes her feel loved, but you just changed her tire. Yeah. And washed her car. You should know that I love you. Well, that ain't the way I receive love, boo. It's nice. Yeah. And thank you. But maybe it made you feel more loved or being loving more than it made me feel loved. Yeah. And it's not that it defines love, but it is how a person receives it. And so there's that it's both. I have to understand how my partner loves me, and my partner has to understand how I receive love, and vice versa. And we meet somewhere in the middle, because you may be showing me love, and that may be how you know to do it. And until I teach you how to love me, you won't know. Yeah. And that's why you can't assume, which a lot of women assume, well, he should just know. Yeah. No. He shouldn't just know. And it's not going to happen through osmosis. It's not going to drop out of the sky into his brain and be like, no. If you want somebody to understand what makes you happy, tell them. Show them.
I think that's so important because, honestly, like, to me, it would feel like if I was to tell my partner, I want you to do this because this is the way that I feel, it makes me feel kind of needy, and therefore I just avoid it completely. You know what I mean? But I think that really is true, and it's so relevant because the way, if you're expressing, your love to your spouse, and you think they're experiencing it in this particular medium, but they're not, that's an issue.
It is. It is. And by the way, feeling needy is called vulnerability.
Yeah.
And why marry somebody or be in connection with someone that you can't feel vulnerable with?
Yeah.
That's kind of the point. Otherwise, just do it by yourself. We all need some place where we don't have it all together. And you connect with somebody because you want more. You want a different kind of connection, one that you can't have just by yourself.
Yeah.
And you want somebody to pick up the pieces when you can't. And it's not that you can't handle it, but on a day when, like right now, I have a cold, and when it's really bad and you just need somebody to go to the store and get you something, or to rub your back, or, get you some hot tea, I could do it. But it's really great if I can be in that vulnerable state and say, hey, listen, I don't feel good. Would you mind? Ideally, you have a partner who responds to that.
Yeah.
Ideally. But that is what makes partnership beautiful, when it works. Vulnerability, Julian.
Yeah, I struggle with that, right?
Yeah.
So let's close with this idea, because every relationship, it starts with the ask. And I am revealing way too much information about me here, but every relationship that I have been in, I have generally been the one that was pursued, right? I have, which is so counter to what I do, because I'm in sales, I'm in recruiting, I'm relatively fearless when it comes to rejection about business, right?
Really?
But whenever it involves me in a personal relationship, it's like I have such a problem asking out women, right?
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, let's say that I do have some type of interest in one particular individual, right? And knowing what I struggle with, like what would be the best way for me to ask without... There you go. It's the fear of rejection, right?
It is.
Fix me. Yeah. What do I do?
Listen, my fear that I talked about, that really... the fear, I think that was the strongest, was fear of rejection.
Yeah.
And ironically, that's why I stayed in relationships that weren't always healthy for me, because you don't want to have to do this again.
Right.
You know what I mean? If somebody loves you or somebody giving you attention, you better just stay with what you have. It may be the best that you can get.
Yeah.
And I think by being honest and saying, listen, I'm not strong at asking people out. It's really not my strong suit, but there's something about you that I'd like to get to know you better. It doesn't have to be a marriage proposal, but I would love to go and have coffee, tea, a drink, a movie, or whatever, and just get to know you better. It's simple as that. It's not a lifelong commitment here.
Yeah.
It's just being in the journey. Just get in the game and have fun, and don't worry about what it means. Like going out with somebody and asking them out, or them not being able to do it that day may not be a total rejection. It may just be that that's not the best day. And so you put yourself in a position of power by saying, when would be a good time?
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, can you go out with me tomorrow night?
Yeah.
You put you can still give them the power back by saying, when would be a good time for us to maybe to get together?
Yeah.
And just spend more time. I'm really intrigued by you. And, it's not something that I normally do, but, I have to be honest here. I'd like to know more about you. If you're open to that, let me know. I'm thinking about this date, but you tell me what works best. So it's kind of that push and pull. You put it out there, but you give them, if that doesn't work, you don't close that door. Right. And I think if you think about what you do strategically, right, from a interviewing perspective, or trying to court a client or whatever, you put yourself in a position of power. And you know what you do? You use your emotional intelligence. Use what you already know about this person to appeal to them. If you know that they like to go see sci-fi movies, then don't take them to go see a romantic movie. Right. You know what I mean? Or to go on a picnic. Ask them to go someplace that you know they already like.
Yeah.
That's their love language, and it's emotional intelligence. So you're already halfway there. See how easy that was?
Okay. All right, Deya. I'm committed to asking out and going on at least a couple dates until the next time you and I meet, and we can talk about it. All right.
I would love that.
So, well, Deya, I guess wrap this all up for us, right? Like, if there was one key lesson, one big key takeaway that our listeners need to have to apply to, creating and then maintaining and growing a great personal romantic relationship, what is that thing?
Listen.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to your heart, to your own heartbeat, and to the heartbeat of your partner. And don't judge the process. Don't try and make it fit into, it's got to be done this way by this time in order for it to matter. It's not fair. And unfortunately, love just doesn't work like that. And sometimes your partner is not always where you are at the same time. It's a goal, but you're talking about two grown human beings who already come from different places and who have different perspectives as to how life works. So really listen with your heart and not just with your head, and hear your partner as opposed to just listening to make your next point, and be willing to take it in, and then be decisive about giving them what they need to feel loved also. Because ultimately, ego gets involved. And if I'm always talking about what I want and you're always talking about what you want, and we're not hearing each other because we're always making the point about what we want, and then finally, if we as in a partnership, if I can be about the business of hearing you and loving you, and you can be about the business of doing the same, then I don't have to make my case.
Yeah.
Then that means I can give you all of my energy to just be what you need me to be for you, because I know you're going to also respond accordingly. And it's never going to be even. That's the other thing. 50-50 is some poo-poo.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't going to happen. Just do the best that you can as much as you can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Deya, I can't remember the last time I had so much fun at a podcast. Thank you so much for doing this. You are an amazing person. I'm so glad to have met you. Tell our audience how to connect with you, how to follow you, how to get your training programs, to find your books. Tell us all that.
So I'm at deyadirect.net. Everything is there. My podcast is called SuperpowHer. I also have the SuperpowHer shop. So that's superpowhershop.com. The program is on the Deya Direct website. It's a 5-part series with some bonuses. And then, ladies, soon to come will be the Man Whisperer series. So stay tuned for that. So go to DEYA Direct for all of that. On social, everything is at DEYA Direct. So that's where I am. The program is ready for you just in time for Valentine's Day to tap into your superpower to love again.
I love it. Deya, thank you so much for this. This is an amazing conversation.
Thank you for having me.
I'll make sure to have all your information in the show notes as well. So everyone, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.